I grew up in the Midwest, in Peoria, Illinois, pretty much in the central part of the U.S. I didn't have very many friends growing up. I had a couple. I was quite broken and quite sad. And so as I was finishing up high school, I had started going to a group called Young Life, which is a youth ministry. And that started really my journey with God. A few days after I got back, I started getting a persistent headache. Woke up at about 2 a.m. and I was vomiting because the pain was just so intense from the headache. So the next day, ended up going to the doctor and he said, I think you've got viral encephalitis, which didn't mean anything to me because I had no idea what that was. But I would wake up about every 4 hours screaming for the next shot of morphine for the first 3 or 4 days because the pain was just, it was just too intense. It just felt like my head was going to explode. Not just the physical side effects of losing the 35 pounds in 3 days, having to learn to walk again, my immune system being compromised, but also the mental effects, the mental fog that I was then in afterwards, the short-term memory issues, all that was from one mosquito bite. I decided I was mad at God, and I was not just mad, I was just absolutely livid at God. And I went on about a 6-year spree of absolutely, I was saved, but I was hating God and was doing pretty much anything and everything I could, drinking, drugs, all those things to upset God because he had done this to me. He hadn't really, he had allowed it, but that's how it felt at the time. My anger just, and my bitterness, it really just consumed me, and I ended up in a point where I wanted to take my own life and have myself committed to the psych ward for a couple weeks because I knew that's not where I wanted my life to go. I just was so broken at that point, I just said, okay, God, you know what, my life is so completely destroyed that if you'll still have me, I'll come back. And so I started resubmitting my life to God, and he started just in small, gradual ways, started bringing restoration. In 1997, I ended up meeting my first wife. Her name was Lisa. We worked together at a customer service company. And we dated for a couple of years and really loved her. And so we decided that we would get married. And she actually ended up in the hospital for 28 days. And they, at one point, she flatlined and they had to do CPR on her for 10 minutes. And then it was June the 6th, I remember waking up that Saturday morning and she started vomiting blood. And I knew that was bad. I just knew that, and I had my suspicions before then that something was really quite wrong. And so took her to the hospital, and that night we got the diagnosis that she had ovarian cancer. And so then we found out the following Tuesday that it was in stage 4, and she did not have long. On June the 22nd, she passed away. And you know what? It didn't make sense. The cancer, her dying, it didn't make sense, but really you've got 2 choices at that point. You can either get angry at God, get pissed off at God, which I knew for me that led to destruction, or you can trust God, even though none of the circumstances make sense for you to do so. And so I decided to trust God through that. I would say that a couple of things that I would say absolutely I've taken away, because I thought after my run from God that God would be done with me, and I've learned that you cannot outrun God. That he will, if you'll allow him, no matter what you've done, no matter how far you've gone from him, if you'll turn back to him, he'll restore you. In 2012, I met Debbie online, and just one thing led to another, and it wasn't that long that I knew I was pretty serious about this girl. The following April, I came over and I was here for 7 weeks and had an amazing time. But anyhow, then it was a year before I was able to get back. And so the following June, I moved back, and then that August, we were married. I just knew that God's hand was on this. No matter how far you may have gone from God, you can still be restored. And that God has a plan and a purpose and a calling on your life.